What's the real difference between a cult and a sect? At first glance, they can look almost identical: passionate, devoted, focused. But the difference isn't about belief, it's about control. A sect is a smaller subset of a religion. And just like religion, a sect has a certain set of beliefs and practices that may differ from the main religious body. A cult uses the sect's beliefs and practices to control and manipulate people, just like the difference between religions and cults. This video may be a little repetitive because if you've seen my other video on the difference between a religion and a cult, then you already understand the difference. Here's the truth many people miss. Not every intense or unusual group is a cult. Some are sects, smaller groups that grow out of a larger religion and develop different interpretations, emphasis, or practices. They still operate within a broader belief system and use religion to guide behavior and give meaning to life. Cults are different. They don't just interpret beliefs differently, they use those beliefs to control people. Here's the simple difference. A sect develops ideas that may be different from the main body of the religion, while a cult will use those same ideas or those same beliefs to exploit people. So what makes a sect a sect? Well, if you imagine a tree with many branches, the trunk is the religion. The branches are sects, different expressions growing from the same roots. Sects share a core belief, but differ in various interpretations or various practices. What keeps them healthy is that the beliefs are meant to guide, and they're not used as weapons. Leaders are accountable, members can question. Leaving doesn't make you an enemy. A sect stays connected to the broader religious world, while cults cut themselves off and they tighten control. When does a sect turn cultic? Some groups don't stay there as a sect. They slide solely from sect into cult. The shift happens when belief stops guiding conscience and starts replacing it. When loyalty matters more than truth, and when obedience matters more than ethics. Sects reform ideas, while cults use those ideas to dominate people. And there's also a clear difference in the power structure, or how power flows. Just like in religions, in a sect, authority is usually shared. There's councils, elders, teachers, and community members can hold various levels of influence. Leaders can be corrected and or replaced. In a cult, authority flows one way, upward toward the leader or small group of leaders. Their voice becomes unquestionable, and you'll hear phrases like, only the leader receives revelation. The cult leader is speaking on behalf of God. That's not faith or religion. That's someone trying to control you when dressing it up as spirituality. Here's another test, is that you can look at how does the group treat outsiders. Sects may disagree strongly with other groups, but they generally interact, debate, and cooperate with other sects or other individuals of the main body of the religion. Members have family, friendships, and careers outside the group. Cults, on the other hand, they close the gates. They isolate slowly. While it may appear that they're willing to engage with others, as soon as that engagement threatens their belief system or threatens their members, they pull back and isolate themselves. They create an us versus them mentality. They'll say things like, we are pure and everybody else is corrupted. We are safe and everywhere else is dangerous. Isolation isn't accidental. It's purposeful. It's strategic. When you cut ties with everyone else, the group becomes your only source of identity. And that's exactly what a cult wants. One of the easiest ways to spot a cultic drift is to watch how the group uses language. Healthy religion or healthy sects use religious terms to teach. Cults use the same terms to control. For instance, obedience begins to mean never question the leadership. Love turns into prove yourself by sacrificing more. Faith becomes don't ask for evidence, just have faith. Doubt becomes whispers of the devil or rebellion. And leaving becomes you're betraying God. When language gets redefined to protect the group or the cult leader or to silence criticism, the group is no longer guiding you. It's shaping your reality and controlling it. And of course, there's the exit door test. Every sect has an exit door. Every cult has locks. If belief is meant to guide you, you can leave without punishment. If belief is being used to control you, leaving becomes dangerous. That's not theology. That's coercion. And in cults, there's also the aspect of spiritual abuse. Cults harm people most deeply by the use of spiritual abuse. They take sacred things like love, trust, confession, purpose, belief, and they weaponize them. Confession becomes surveillance, guidance becomes guilt, and community becomes captivity. A sect or religion corrects behavior for ethical reasons. And remember, the whole goal is to ultimately guide people. The cult disciplines people to actually maintain the power and keep the cult leader or the cult leaders in control. The tragedy is that members often think that they're becoming holier, not realizing they're becoming more controlled and more dependent on a human being and not on God. And from the outside, sect and a cult can look very similar. Like I mentioned for religions, they both may be passionate, they both may challenge the mainstream, and they both might have strict practices. But intensity isn't actually the danger. It's the isolation, the secrecy, and the coercion that become dangerous. The moment a group stops respecting personal conscience, it stops being a sect or a religion and starts becoming a cult. So let's give a real world example. In the 1500s, there was a group called the Protestants, and they were a sect of the Catholic Church. And they were called heretics and cultists, but they debated openly, wrote publicly, and invited scrutiny. That transparency kept them in the realm of sects. 20th century, groups with charismatic leaders who stopped tolerating questions, isolated members, and demanded total obedience, those became cults, even though they may have been practicing their version of the Protestant sect. The doctrine didn't determine the label, the behavior did. Let's talk a second about the psychology of belonging. Humans have a deep need to belong. We want to feel chosen, safe, and certain. Sects meet that need with community, and so do cults. But cults also exploit that need for control. Cults turn belonging into a bargain. For example, they'll say, "We love you only if you obey. We love you only if you remain loyal. We love you only if you listen to the leader." But love with these sorts of conditions isn't really love, it's just leverage. If you have to sacrifice your conscience and your independent thought and your critical thinking just to keep belonging to a group, you're not in a sect or a religion anymore. You're actually in a cult that is using your beliefs to trap you. So how do we stay safe? Here are some simple questions to help protect yourself. Ask yourself, can I disagree without fear? Can you go right up to the leader and say, "I don't agree with you"? Will there be repercussions? Will you be treated different? Will you be kicked out the group? Are the leaders accountable to anyone and everyone within the group? Or are they only accountable to themselves? Does the group respect outsiders or demonize them? Does the group respect those who criticize them? Or do they isolate themselves from critics and isolate their members from critics? Do you still have privacy, autonomy, and relationships outside the group? Are relationships outside the group encouraged? Is there a healthy spirituality? Remember, healthy spirituality can survive questions, but cults fear them. And if you ever realize your group is crossing the line, reach out. There are people and resources that can help you rebuild your independence. So think about your own experiences. Have you ever been in a group, religious or not, where questioning felt like betrayal, where authority demanded your silence, where disagreements brings fear and negative impact? When disagreement is handled with respect, it's probably a sect or religion. But when disagreement brings fear and repercussions, it's probably a cult. So what's the difference between a cult and a sect? A sect uses beliefs and practices to help guide you, just like a religion, but a cult uses those beliefs and practices to control you. A sect or a religion invites study, encourages critical thought, and embraces questions. Cults forbid all of this. Cults replace your thought with the thoughts and the conscience of the leaders. Both may talk about truth, but only one respects your freedom to follow the guidance, while one tries to force you to follow a leader or a small group of leaders' version of that guidance. In the final episode, we'll look at how to recognize if you're in a cult and what to do next. So if you have any questions, comments, please leave them in the comment section or reach out to us via the resources in the video description. Remember, truth never demands your silence. Truth is not afraid of questions, and truth is not afraid of doubt. See you next time.